Okay, today I'm working on my 2015 Ford F250 Super Duty. This is the one with the extra cab, so it's got 3 doors, but only has 2 door handles. It's a half door. What I'm doing today is attempting to replace the ball joint on the, this is called, a lot of the places call it, let me turn this right side up, stabilizer bar. So it bolts on right there to the frame, comes across, and then it has like a ball joint right there. And I've seen on YouTube a lot of people, seems like they have a problem with this. That ball joint wears out, and I can see that the rubber where the ball joint is supposed to be is all flattened out, so maybe it wasn't kept filled with grease. It doesn't have a grease port on the top, and the I don't know if you can see that, but there's a grease port on the top. But I guess maybe they give out after time. Then you get a little bit of vibration in the steering, and you also, like mine is snap, giving me like a snap. When I turn the wheel, it'll crack, and then turn it back a little bit, it'll crack. Just that little bit of play back and forth as this thing pushes forward and then pulls back. It kind of snaps. So I'm attempting to replace that today. I've got the bolt off. It's what, 15/16 is what I used. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a metric, but it fit perfect. So I have a new ball joint for it that I ordered, and I'm going to try to use one of those fork splitters to separate that bar from the ball joint. So I will start that, and then we'll come back. So today I'm replacing a ball joint. This is on a 2015 Ford F250 Super Duty. This is stabilizer bar is what a lot of people are calling it. It bolts onto the frame right there. It's at the very front of the vehicle, goes across, and then it has a ball joint connection right there. So it's, I guess it stabilizes the axle itself. What I've got on top there is the part of the ball joint press that I rented from AutoZone, and that's this right here. So I'm going to attempt to just press the whole thing out through the bar and everything. If that doesn't work, if it doesn't press it up through the bar, then I'll have to get, there's another device you can get that slips right in here, and it kind of like this, and it kind of opens up the more you crank it down. So I'm going to start cranking on this thing and see what happens. Okay, so I've been banging on it just a little bit with a sledgehammer, and it is forcing it up at the top a little bit, and the bar broke loose nice. So I'm going to go ahead and take the bar off and then work on getting that ball joint out of there. So I started on this ball joint, and it wasn't too hard to get the bar disconnected. Kind of popped right off of there, but you might need a splitter. But I've seen a lot of videos on guys doing this, and some of them actually show kind of the configuration of when they took it off, but they don't explain it real thoroughly. They do explain like putting it back on pretty thoroughly with that C-clamp. What I'm doing at this point is just like everybody else has been doing, is I'm trying to cut off that bolt, the ball, the arm on the ball. So I've been using a Sawzall and it's getting some of it, but I'm gonna switch to a roto zip with a blade like that. Of course, I'm gonna have to be careful. There's no guard because you can't really fit it in there very good. So I'm gonna give that a shot, and then I'll give some video on what it looks like once I get that part off, and then I'll go into detail on the setup on how to remove that shaft. So this is going to have to get forced up, and I think the only way to do it is you get the big adapter on the top, which it slides up into. At the bottom, I'm going to have to figure out something that'll push right on that, not on the ball itself, because what's happening with the ball is when they're clamping down on it, it's just forcing the ball up through the top, but it doesn't take away the main part of it that you have to get out of there to get the new ball joint in. So I finally got that piece cut off. This is what it looks like. I had a pair of vice grips on it so I could turn it. So it just takes, you have to cut, turn, cut, turn, cut, turn. There's the ball joint right in there. And there's what it looks like. You see I gagged it up a little bit, but at least I should be able to press up against this rim and push it out that way, out through the top, without pushing on the ball itself. Also, the stabilizer bar that everybody's saying it gets in the way, and it does. I did lift up the frame. I didn't lift the tire off the ground just to where I could see the tire starting to lift, but that gave me a little bit of room in here. And also I used a strip tie to pull this stabilizer bar down so it'd be out of the way. That way I was able to get my roto zip in there. If I get my roto zip in at this angle over here, I don't know if you can see, but I have the roto zip in here holding it over here against the axle, and that gives me a pretty straight shot at cutting into that thing little at a time. You just have to be careful, little at a time, little at a time. The Sawzall didn't seem to do much of anything to help, so I ended up not using that. Okay, I've got my C-clamp on there now, and I used the top, it's like a adapter washer thing. Looks like this is the other one, so the grooves fit the different sizes of these. I was going to use this on the bottom and then use the bottom adapter for it like this, but it's just, I don't know, about a ½ an inch too big to be able to get it all on there. So what I'm going to do is, hopefully if I can push it up in there a little bit, if I can just get it even just inside the slot, if I can get this part up inside here and coming out the top, then I could put that adapter on probably and push it the rest of the way through. But I'm gonna do it right on the ball joint and see what happens. It may just pop the ball joint out the top, I don't know, but we'll see. And I think I'm using a 22mm drive socket for this. It fits perfect. So I've been cranking on it just a little bit, but I want to show you, looks like I might be getting lucky. The sleeve is starting to push up inside there, so hopefully I'll be able to push it all the way out like this. And I'm just using a, just a breaker bar in my socket. I'm not trying to use a power wrench or anything like that. So it did push all the way through, and I just want to show you again because this is the larger sleeve. So there's the top of the bearing, here's the sleeve, and this is the adapter that I used. So it just fits right on top of there, and the C-clamp pushes down on it. And then at the bottom of the C-clamp, I just used this adapter. So it's, yeah, before I take it off, I can show you that adapter that came with it. And that was big enough actually to kind of put just a little pressure on the outside of that rim of the bearing. You can actually kind of see where it pushed on it right there. See that line? That's where it pushed on. So it wasn't pushing, I don't think, directly on the ball joint. But yeah, this thing was super dry. So next I think I'll just emery cloth, clean that out just a little bit, or use some cleaning fluid, wipe the inside of that out. And I have the other one in the freezer. I'm going to see if I freeze it, maybe it'll shrink a little bit. It's not that cold yet. I just put it in a little while ago, so I might just try it and see if it looks like it'll slide down in there. Okay, here's my new ball joint. Fits in there really good. Just drops in there. I had it in the freezer, but it wasn't in there very long. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and get the setup to press it down and see how that goes. So here's what I come up with. The C-clamp, let's see if I can turn it this way. Yeah, so the C-clamp just isn't big enough to accommodate with the bolt on the bottom. So I'm going to try to push it down, because I've got that adapter, that cap thing there, right on the ball joint. Then I've got a big enough sleeve for, it's bigger than the ball joint, so it'll slip down through there. Then I have the other adapter here at the bottom holding that sleeve, and that attaches, that's got a thing that drops into the C-clamp, so that all connects together. And at the bottom of the C-clamp there's a hole, so my bearing can actually, or my the bolt from the ball joint can actually go all the way down through here, no matter how much I clamp it down. The only hard part's going to be right up there, where that's where I have to get my ratchet on there, or my torque wrench. And so it's going to be kind of a slow go. I'm sure I can get it on there, but I'm just going to have to keep an eye on it. Make sure that the ball joint is sliding in there smooth. So I'll have to do a little and then come back, do a little, come back. But I'll update in a few. So here's what I've got. The ball joint's pressed down in there nice and tight. Really wasn't much trouble. The only trouble that I really had was the time it took to cut that the bolt, the threading part. Actually, I cut it all the way up to the ball, so that's what probably took the most time. There's the, see, I cut it, the shank all the way up to the ball. And this setup with this adapter flat on the ball joint, the top of the ball joint, this sleeve, this adapter on the bottom, and then the bolt. You can see there's the bolt right there for the, so it's got free room to come all the way down. The only problem was just kind of getting the socket on up here, because I had to get out in front of the tire. I guess if you took the tire off, you'd have more room, but still, right above that is, I think, part of the brake line, so that's kind of in the way. I didn't want to move that, so I just used a regular, with a 3/8 drive, 7/8, and got it started. You know, the first little bit's not that hard anyway. Once I got it down far enough to where I could get that breaker bar on there, then I just did it, and it didn't even take that long to clamp it all the way down. So I'm going to go ahead and take it off. And one other thing I forgot to mention, once this stabilizer bar is disconnected. If you start up the car and turn the steering wheel, it actually shifts the whole body of the car kind of shifts away. Like if I raise this up right now, you can kind of see it won't even connect with the ball joint. It's too far away. I need to start up the car and turn the steering wheel back, and I guess it's kind of like the axle is what's moving, or the body is what's moving, but it's from turning the steering column, and since the stabilizer bar is not there, the steering bar is pulling that way or pulling this way. But I mean, since the truck's sitting on the ground, it's just going to move the chassis of the car. So I'll do that, and then I should be able to get this to marry right up there. I've got to put on my grease port on the top so I can pump some grease into it. I didn't want to do that until I had it clamped down in there, but it's looking good. I loosened the nut on the C-clamp, and I just want to, so everybody can see it coming off of there and see exactly what the setup was. So I'm going to lower the C-clamp enough to where I can just pull it off of there. Okay. So there's the C-clamp with no adapter on the push bolt. This is the adapter that I used to press flat down on the top of the ball joint. So this set right up here on top. See, it's a nice flat surface, and this round fits perfect. It's the perfect size. Just want to make sure you get it nice and straight. And then at the bottom, it's still kind of on there, but there's that adapter. And I may have to give it a little encouragement here. There we go. So, and it's this sleeve. It's the medium sleeve, but you can see there's plenty of room for the ball joint to slide through this if it needs to. So there's a lot of room there. And this adapter is the one has a pretty good size hole. And this adapter right here I used on the bottom. So I just set the sleeve on it like that, and there's the hole in the bottom and that hole matches the one on the C-clamp, so that nut can just free fall through there. Okay, here's the finished product. Still need to get some more grease in that port. I ran out of grease in my grease gun, but what I did was just started up the truck and turned the steering wheel until this matched up. This support bar matched up with the ball joint. Slid it right up on there, slid up real good, and tighten it up. It's this one's a 15/16, and it's got that small nut on the bottom. You can put this is a metric 13. You can put a metric 13 on it and hold it if you need to, so it doesn't spin while you're tightening it down. I'm not sure of the torque. I got to look it up, but that's it. It's looking good. It's nice and tight, and we will see how it drives. This is 2015 Ford F250 Super Duty 4-wheel drive. This is the front drive shaft going to the front axle, and the problem I'm having, it's got a vibration at 40 miles an hour. I took it in, had the tires balanced, and they had them check everything out. They checked the brakes, and they found that this part of the drive axle at the back, this is where it hits the transfer case. It's not really the U-joints, but you can see it move up and down. what it is right inside there. I don't know if I can zoom in on it enough, but right inside there, if you look it up online, you'll see it. It's there's like a bearing. So one of the housings that holds the U-joints, there's a U-joint here, and then there's a U-joint on, let's see, on the other side. So that's the other part of it, and it's right in between there somewhere where that all bolts together. See, there's four U-joints. There's a U-joint there and a U-joint there, and there's two U-joints, one right here, then it goes into this connector thing, and then another U-joint at the back. Then it bolts to the transfer case. So that bearing has worn out. The U-joints seem fine. The shop told me if I wanted it fixed, they would have to order this whole drive shaft, complete unit. The drive shaft, the U-joints, everything, $1,000 and $300 to install it. So I looked it up online. I can get an aftermarket one for just a little under $300. I'm going to try that. It comes with all new U-joints. It comes with U-joint for that end. It comes with the whole assembly here, the U-joints, the that bearing that they're talking about that goes out, that's inside here. It kind of presses against the U-joints, I guess, keeps it from doing that wiggle, being loose. So I'm gonna document all this as I do it, and I'll try to keep it short and to the point. So first thing I'm gonna do here is take off this like a guard plate. You can see there's two bolts here on this side. There's the drive shaft right there. This pan goes across, just a protection pan, I think, for the transfer case. There's two more bolts on this side. Hopefully you can see them. I'm going to undo those, and then I'll give you a look at what it looks like without that, and a closer look at the drive shaft. So here's the protection plate, pan, whatever you want to call it, that I took off. 4 bolts, really easy. Actually, it's got some kind of cheesy bolt clip things for the things to bolt onto, but they hold. It's not heavy. Here's the drive shaft where it hits the transfer case, so these bolts will come off, and then from here back is the whole new unit. And you can see it wobbling there. And I'll just go through that. It'll be a pretty quick process once I get whatever kind of socket that takes right there, and we'll start working on it. I know it's pretty rusty. I'm not going to worry about painting this drive shaft since I'm replacing it, but once I get it replaced, I might rebuild it and then sell it. Everything is good on it. To give me a project, something to do, take it apart, check the U-joints, re-grease them if they're fine, replace them if they're not.